that you were at one point the rabbi for Kirk Douglas, the movie star.
Yes,
Wow,
yes,
that
that's
was
an
cool.
interesting story. Turns out that God put Kirk Douglas's ghostwriter, a woman that did a lot of his books for him, worked with him, wrote with him. She introduced me to Kirk. Kirk was on his way to Israel, and she suggested I send him a fax inviting him to my home for Friday night dinner, Shabbat dinner. And I didn't think, why would he take a dinner invitation from some, unknown rabbi? And he actually said yes. I also wrote a book called Question and Answers About God, which is really what I want the show to be about, really
That's
about God.
perfect. That's perfect. That's
I'm
perfect.
not looking to teach Judaism to anybody. I think let's first talk about God before we go
I like it.
into anything specific. But like, who is God? Who are we? What is the nature of our relationship? What does God want from us? What is the nature of divine judgment? And what does it mean to fear God? Why would I even want to fear God? Those are the questions that I want to address in this
Sure.
soul booth.
Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with a brand new episode, brand new series called Soul Boost, Inviting God In, with Rabbi David Aaron, that I've known for a long, long time, and you guys are fixing to find out about him if he's been new to you right now. So welcome, David Aaron. It's such a pleasure to finally get you here. You and I visited the idea a while back, if you remember, thanks to a dear friend of mine, Kirk Gayton. You are his absolute favorite rabbi on the planet, and if we just couldn't get the time to match up or something. It just didn't happen. But now we got Gabriel Sanders involved, and it's like, things are falling together nicely. Your schedule is right in line with mine now, thankfully, because this is going to be a good series. For the people who don't know who you are, would like for you to introduce yourself, Rabbi. The questions we would all have, obviously your credentials are going to be very important based on the content that we're going to be discussing. And then just tell us a little bit about your website, your books you've written. I would like to get copies of those, by the way. And we'll go from there. So, Rabbi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Thank you. So you grew up Jewish. What made you want to become a rabbi? That's always my first question.
That was the last thing on my mind growing up, that I'd ever be a rabbi. I wanted to be an actor growing up.
Mm.
My parents were totally against that and convinced me that I have to do something more practical that could make a living. So I actually gave up my dreams to be an actor and decided I'd be an accountant. But when I came to Israel and began my journey back to Torah, I was very impressed with my rabbis, and I kind of realized they're a little bit like actors. Not that they're faking it, but they're
Sure. They're
they're
presenting.
communicating, they're inspiring,
Yep.
they're kind of they have to have some stage presence. And I realized maybe that's really what I wanted to do. And so
How old were
before
you
I was
about then?
being an actor, if I was an actor, all I would want to be doing is get my name out there and take any script I can. Now I want to get God's name out there, and I have scripture, not scripts.
Oh, well said. Nice. Which probably makes you a good author because you're really good with words, apparently. So, how old were you whenever you came to this point of where you ran into your rabbi, and how many years was it that you were thinking about this dream before you finally got inspired to become a rabbi?
I came to Israel to start studying Torah when I was 18 years old, and I would say about 2 years into the study, it became very clear to me that I wanted to pursue a career as an educator, a rabbi. But really, it all started one night when I heard my mother screaming in the middle of the night, having a nightmare of the Holocaust. My mother
Mm.
was a survivor. She
Oh,
was in the
wow.
concentration camp when she was 15 years old. And my mother never spoke about the concentration camp. She just screamed about it in the middle of the night, having nightmares. And one night I woke up to her screaming, and I was bombarded with questions. Is there a God? And if there's a God, is he good? And if he's good, why is the world so bad?
Mm.
And if we're the chosen people, I wish he chose somebody else. And at a very young age, I was already a pretty tormented soul, being bombarded with questions about who are we, why are we, what can we become, why is there so much evil in the world, why is there so much pain in the world. So I was set up to be a philosopher a long time ago, and then it kind of hit me when I was coming close to 20 years old, that all those questions was helping me become the kind of teacher I could be, because it takes one to know one, it takes one to help one. And so the questions that I respond to are the questions that I myself have struggled with and I myself have tried to answer. So I've written 8 books. I've already have 2 more on the way. Actually, they're completed, not published yet. And all my books are really my own journey to find myself and God and find joy in my life and find a way to live in the way that I could service the highest good. And so when people resonate with my works, it's not because I felt people had questions and they needed answers. It's because I had questions and I needed answers, and I'm not just sharing my research to help me in my own journey.
In essence, isn't that what being a light to the nations is? Just doing what you do, and when people need you, you share your stuff with them. You share your light with them. It's not proselytizing.
Absolutely. That's what it means to be an educator. I'm into sharing. I'm not into imposing. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I even tell my students, don't believe anything I say, just listen and decide for yourself. But right now just listen and you can decide later whether you resonate with it or not. But yeah, it's about sharing, and that's all I just want to do. I just want to share. There's something called outreach, and a friend of mine was very much into outreach, and he went to meet with the Lubavitcher rabbi, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he asked the Rebbe for a blessing to do outreach. And the rabbi said, "No, I will not give you a blessing for outreach." And my friend was shocked because he gave up his career to do outreach. And the rabbi said, "You know what outreach means? It means to reach to somebody who's out there and bring them in.
Hmm.
And who do you know who's out and who's in? Who says you're in? Who says I'm in?" He said, "But I will give you a blessing to love your neighbor as yourself." And when I heard that story, I stopped trying to convince anybody of anything. I just share as an act of loving my neighbor as myself. I find the teachings of the Torah a gift in my life, and I just share those teachings.
That's pretty awesome. Like I said, the first time I heard about you was through my friend Kirk Dayton, and one thing he mentioned, he said he goes, you know what, William, is what's really neat about this guy too. Everything is neat about Rabbi David Aaron, but he said one thing I thought was also kind of like, really, wow, that's really cool. And he said that you were at one point the rabbi for Kirk Douglas, the movie star.
Yes,
Wow,
yes,
that
that's
was
an
cool.
interesting story in itself. Turns out that God put Kirk Douglas's ghostwriter, a woman that did a lot of his books for him, worked with him, wrote with him, and she introduced me to Kirk. Kirk was on his way to Israel, and she suggested I send him a fax inviting him to my home for Friday night dinner, Shabbat dinner, and I didn't think why would he take a dinner invitation from some, unknown rabbi, and he actually said yes, which was like surprising, and so he came to my home for dinner, and then well, actually, I picked him up at the hotel. I took him to the Western Wall, and I took him on the rooftop of my institution, which is overlooking the Western Wall, and we hadn't really had any conversation yet. And then suddenly he turns to me and he starts singing a verse from the Kabbalat Shabbat, the introduction to Shabbat. And I was shocked. What is he doing? How does he know this in Hebrew? And I said, "How do you know this?" And he says, "Well, I'm an actor. I know my lines." I said, "Oh." He said, "Yeah, I grew up in a home that was an Orthodox home. I, in fact, put on my tefillin, my phylacteries, till I was 13." I said, "You only start when you're 13." He said, "Oh, okay." He said, "But Judaism is all form, no content." So it was like, challenge.
That's funny.
So I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Let me ask you something, Kirk. Imagine if you were to base your budget on money as you understood it as a child. How would you be spending your money?" He said, "I'd be wasting it on junk." I said, "Okay." I said, "Kirk, imagine you were to base your diet today on your understanding of food as a child. What would you be eating?" He said, "Oh, I for sure be eating junk." I said, "So imagine you were to base your Jewish identity today based on your understanding of Judaism as a child. What would it be?" He said, "Checkmate, Rabbi. Are you telling me to grow up?" I said, "No, I'm just saying as we grow up, terms that we've had since we're children has to grow up with us. And for a lot of people, for instance, the word God has no more richer meaning than it did when they were 3 years old. And that's a problem if you have a 3 year old understanding of God when you're already in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And he was in his late 70s when I met him.
Hmm.
So that really kind of shook him up, and he invited me to come to Los Angeles as a challenge. Turn me on, Rabbi, to the Bible. And he said, I want you to come for a week. We're going to study every day for 5 hours a day.
Wow, really?
Let's see you turn me on. So I flew to Los Angeles and we began studying the story of Adam and Eve in the garden and the snake. And I guess it blew him away, or I don't have to blow him away. The Bible blew him
Sure,
away. And
sure.
he said, when are you coming back? After a week of this, he brought me back, and I flew back and forth to Los Angeles a good few times, and we basically learned the Bible together.
Wow, that is such an amazing story. I could almost visualize sitting there with you guys. I've loved Kirk Douglas for
You can't
many,
visualize
many.
it because he was lying on the floor. He had a back problem.
Oh,
So
wow,
he would
really?
lie on the floor, and I would sit on a chair and he'd be lying on the
So
floor.
you were like in a therapist situation in a way.
Yeah, well, I floored him, you might say.
That's funny. Okay, going back to you now. Who was your Rebbe? Not that it'll make sense to anybody. I'm just kind of curious because I mean people like to know.
Well,
Um,
I had a lot of rabbis on my journey, but I would say the one that had the greatest impact on me as a rabbi, Shlomo Fisher, who's no longer in this world.
hmm,
He really had a huge impact on me. In terms of the writings of who has had the greatest impact on me, it's been predominantly the teachings of Rabbi Abraham Isaac Cook and Rav Tzadok of Lublin. They're key in my thinking, but I'm not anyway fixated on any teacher. I try to learn from everyone wherever I can. So.
nice. Okay, well, very good. Guys, by the way, in YouTube, if you're watching right now, if you have any questions, put your questions in here. At some point, our show platform is going to be probably by the next show at least, maybe even towards the end of this one. Actually, no, because you're not going to have that much time today. But moving forward, we'll open this up to live callers. The whole point of the show, this isn't a Christian call-in show. This isn't about Christianity at all. It's about Judaism. It's about if you're a Ben Noach and you want to know how to connect with the Creator, this is what this show is about. So you can put any of your questions in here, whether it's about practical living, something a principle that you need to have clarified. I'm sure this is something that Rabbi will not have an issue with answering. I want to go back to your books. So you said you have 8 books. I noticed on the website, rabbidavidaaron.com. I think I saw there was 3 on one of the front screens. Could you tell us a little bit about your books, if you don't mind?
Right. Well, the first book I actually wrote that came out later is called Love is My Religion. And it's really a thematic understanding of the book of Genesis. I start off with the mistake of Adam and Eve and the snake and how that sets the stage for a journey of rectification, of healing, and how Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob really fixed what was broken by Adam and Eve. And it really is an understanding of Judaism in general because the principles of Judaism is all hidden and revealed in that story there from Adam to Abraham to Isaac to Jacob. And it actually says, our sages tell us that Jacob successfully reclaimed the beauty, I'm going to call it the godly beauty of Adam and Eve. So that's that book. But that wasn't really the first book that got published. My first book that got published is called Endless Light, The Ancient Path of Kabbalah to Love, Spiritual Growth, and Personal Power. And in there, I talk about, what is love between a man and a woman? What is love between parents and their children? What does it mean to pray? What does it mean to have a soul? And so it's kind of a collection of understandings of basic principles from Kabbalah. The next book I wrote was called Seeing God, which was and is a experiential guide to seeing God in your life, not with the eyes of your physical eyes, but with the eyes of your soul, and how to open up the eyes of your soul. And actually, you can see God in your life when you learn how to use the eyes of your soul. I call that book not a book, but a pair of glasses that you look through. Then I wrote a book called Living a Joyous Life, which is daily Jewish practice. Why eat kosher, why pray, why study the Torah, why celebrate Shabbat. And then I wrote a book on the Jewish holidays called Inviting God In, which is I really want to call it You Are Loved. but the publishing house was against that, and I didn't know why. And they said, well, a book title has to be credible, and nobody believes they're loved. That's
Wow.
one of the biggest publishing houses in the world has decided that people don't believe they're loved.
That's
It's not a so
that's
I wanted
crazy.
to call it "You Are Loved" and show how every Jewish holiday is a theme and the love between God and man. But they nixed it, so it ended up being called "Inviting God In." I wrote another book called The Secret Life of God, which is a book about who are we, why are we, and what can we become. And I really address the issue of pain and suffering in the world and why is it so hard. Then what else did I write? I wrote a book called The God-Powered Life, which is more kind of like the psychology from the secrets of Judaism, in terms of who are we as souls and what is the source of unconditional self-worth in the presence of God. What else am I missing here?
That was 5, I think.
Five.
Let
Oh,
me
I
see.
wrote a book on prayer called Soul Powered Prayers, where I explain one of the standard prayers of the Jewish prayer book called the Amidah, the standing. I go through that prayer word for word,
Nice.
and
That now you
kind of like
got now that book, that one book is about the Amidah. The whole,
yes,
really?
word for word.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay.
And what else? What else? What else?
You got a
We're only up to
secret, the
six.
secret life of God. Did you talk about that one yet?
Thank God I did that. Secret of God. I should have my books here somewhere in my office.
I see
You know,
4 on the screen. Oh,
this
there's
is, this is
Seymour.
embarrassing. It's like forgetting the name of your
Hey,
children.
that's that. No, that's okay. I get. Oh, actually, I see. Okay, I see the 8 here. So let me. Okay, so you got soul powered prayers, love is my religion, God powered life, inviting God in, the secret life of God, living a joyous life, endless light, and seeing God. That's pretty amazing. And which one is the
I
one
have a new
about?
book that isn't out yet. It's called Blessed, which
Nice.
is Torah secrets to self-actualization and abundance. And very excited about that book. But it's not out yet. But
What's your?
pieces of it's going up on the web. And I also wrote a book called Question and Answers About God, which is really what I want the show to be about, is
That's
questions really
that's
about God.
perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Um, because I'm not looking to teach Judaism to anybody. I think let's first talk about God before we go
I like it.
into anything specific. But like, who is God? Who are we? What is the nature of our relation? What does God want from us? What is the nature of divine judgment, and what does it mean to fear God? Why would I even want to fear God? Those are the questions that I want to address in this
Sure.
Soul Boost.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, let's see. First of all, let's keep an eye on the time. You said you have to jet out of here at in 15 minutes, I guess, right? You had 1 hour.
Yes.
Okay, we'll just go and tighten this up today. We'll call this a wrap, and then we'll figure out a time. It may not be Wednesdays yet, guys. If you're watching live, we'll determine. Rabbi David and I will actually get together on the specific time that will be every week the same time. So we won't call it this day and time at the moment, but you will get a notification that'll give everybody time to share your video out and get people excited about having you on, and we'll kind of go from there. But I certainly am looking very forward to asking you a lot of questions I've got in mind, and I know they do too. So that being said, Rabbi, I really appreciate your time, and I look forward to getting with you on our next show. So guys, thank you again for tuning in, and be sure to share this with your friends. Click that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on all notifications, and also if you could find me on Facebook, Rabbi David Aaron is also on Facebook. You can try to reach out to him, follow his page, or send him a friend request there. You can keep up with everything that way. Peace and shalom to you guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you. If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.